Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We will be looking at stakeholder mapping in this video. Let's take a look. So, the tool, this is also one of those performance management tools that you should add to your list. We've looked at about 5 or 6 tools in the first chapter. So, here we will be using Mendelow's matrix. It is quite popular, it is the go to and very easy tool to use to classify stakeholders. And you do know this very well, I'm sure. You've looked at it in several subjects before this, especially SBL. What happens here is that you're classifying your stakeholders based on their level of interest and level of power. That's it. So if you look at the classification in itself, depending on the power level and the interest level, you can classify them broadly into 4 categories: keep informed, minimal effort, keep satisfied, and key players. So they are quite logical in the sense that if you have a high power and high interest stakeholder, you're basically talking about a key player. They are fully engaged with the company. But if you have someone high power but low interest, then this is someone like the government. You do know that because of the power level they have, they you have to deal with them carefully. So you keep them satisfied so that they don't want to interfere with our matters, because they have high power, so they can exert a high level of influence. So it's a fairly straightforward and fairly easy to analyze or easy to apply tool. Let's quickly run through the number of steps. There are about 8 listed, but it's quite logical. So if you were to apply stakeholder analysis into a company, you're going to start with identifying all the stakeholders and what their needs are. What are they doing? Why are they related to us? What are their objectives? That's your first step. Second step is you need to consider the relative levels of power and interest. So the classification itself, based on power level and interest, you'll classify them into high power, low power, moderate, etc., etc. You'll have your own justifications. But it's important that you do have a logical reasoning behind your classification. Why you would consider them to have a particular power level or particular interest level. It's good to have a reasoning always, because depending on the reasoning you can change. When things change, when circumstances change, you can shift them around, because you do know what was the logic behind classifying them into that particular position. Thirdly, you will evaluate using the matrix how the different stakeholders should be managed. So you will classify them, and based on the classification, keep satisfied, key players, minimal effort, etc. Based on that, you will come up with your own approach that is suitable to you, that is applicable to you in dealing with the stakeholders. Step 4 would be establishing your priorities, making sure that you understand who are the most important. And priority it can be urgency, it can be importance, it can be impact, it can be relative dollar value of influence that they exert. So depending on whatever logics and whatever justifications you have, you would be classifying them into priorities. And then you would also this is an important point where, and it can get tested in the APM exam, because they might pitch stakeholders against each other, where stakeholders have clashing needs, conflicting needs and objectives, and they might have the same level of influence, same level of power, same level of interest. So in such a situation, it's up to you, it's up to the company, it's up to the leadership to manage that situation carefully. So we call it conflict management. So obviously you will start by, within that step itself, you would want to have a good idea about the different conflicts that are available. And we do generally have a model that we refer to in APM, which is called the Sayat and March conflict resolution approach, where they proposed a few methods that are quite typical when it comes to dealing with conflicts. It could be prioritization. So very simple, you address the most high priority matter first, so the others get sidetracked, and they may not be happy. But if it's good if you can manage your communication better. If you're going to prioritize, then you can use communication as a good tool to kind of keep it diplomatic. Negotiation and satisficing, that is basically finding the minimum acceptable outcome for everyone, or for as many as possible. Sequential attention, it's necessarily giving some of your attention here, some of your attention there, some of your attention there. So you don't address any issue in full. You keep giving attention to everyone sequentially. Side payments. This is essentially diverting a certain group away, not by giving them what they want, but giving them something else, right? So it should be ethical. It's not like a bribery. It's not that sort of thing. It's about negotiating in a way that they would divert their attention. They get something else, and therefore you can focus on the more high priority targets. Or exercise of power. That's sort of the ultimate move, where if nothing else works, then you just go ahead with your executive power. It could be the CEO, the chairman, or a CXO making such decisions, where too many conflicts, and then you decide that this is the way forward, and then they all have to stay in line with that. So that's conflict resolution. So you do try to manage your conflicts. In addition to that, as you progress, sixth step outlined here is that once the stakeholders' needs have been prioritized and any conflicts managed, the mission and strategic objectives of the organization should be developed with these needs in mind. It not necessarily developed, but it's really a refresh, right? You need to take a look at what your vision and your objectives are to see if they are in line with your understanding of stakeholder needs. And if they are not, if you see certain gaps, you can address them. Step 7 is, once the organization has developed the mission and strategic objectives, you will go on to establish your CSFs and your KPIs, and thereafter you implement your process, you implement your business, you keep tracking them using your KPIs, and you try to manage it. And step 8 here, so this is more in the planning side of things, especially step 6, 7, and 8. The strategic objectives should be translated into tactical and operational objectives, and performance measures should be established for these. So it's the fact that you have strategic objectives is all good and well, but if you're a big company, you have tactical managers, you have junior executives working, you're a big company, then you do need to translate and break down your strategic objectives into the smaller versions of tactical plans and operational goals and objectives, so that by the lower level staff achieving those little goals, uh, together they're helping us achieve the overall strategic objective. So see, this is an important point. Now, you have to understand that you will not be required in the exam to apply Mendelow's matrix. That's definitely not going to happen. It's too simple. It's not something that the APM examiner is interested in. What they want you to understand is that you have to have the ability to look at stakeholders and manage them. So one of the easiest ways to managing stakeholders is identifying their power, level of power and level of interest. That's why we are learning the Mendelow's matrix here. And in addition to that, you have to understand where does stakeholder management fit in the overall planning and controlling process of the company. Especially in the planning aspect is what we looked at. That at an early stage, if you are able to figure out what the stakeholder needs are, then you can recalibrate or calibrate your plans or develop your plans in such a way that those needs are considered. If so, if you plan to help your stakeholder objectives, and not only one group, but as many groups as possible, you've managed your conflicts, you've got a very healthy environment around your operations, because everybody knows that what they need is being addressed, being looked at, and everybody could be convinced that it's in their best interest to work for the company in an honest and fulfilling way. And that is that is what we learn with regard to stakeholder mapping. um, be quite thorough, revise, it's quite easy. Try to apply it, try to do the sample questions that are provided as well. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.